So, Melody of Memory has been out for about insert time here once script is finished now, and like many consumers of video games, I was charmed by it momentarily before I was overwhelmed by a mental cacophony of bitter, jaded cynicism, which eventually manifested as a seething, white-hot, entitled rage.
This piece of media does not satisfy my rigid criteria. Its offerings are meager and it has left my soul empty. I must consume more. It's not enough. More. I'm still not satisfied.
No, but really, I did a big discussion video about Melody of Memory, and to make an hour-long story a second short, I liked it. Loved it even. Still love it, still playing it. But I can't deny that there were definitely some strange omissions from the track list. And I think there are valid reasons for some exclusions, but for most cases I can only speculate and or complain, which is what we'll get into soon. But it seems like it doesn't really matter how much or how loud anyone complains, because there are apparently no plans for Melody of Memory DLC, something I actually didn't know when I bought the game because I had avoided pre-release press. I gotta say, that kinda baffles me. If any game in the series sounds like a lock for DLC, I would have pinned Melmem to be the one, if only by how comparatively easy it would be to drip new content into the game. I can't say that I would have been thrilled or even happy about purchasing additional songs that probably could have easily been included at launch, but make no mistake, the verb there is still purchasing. I'm in way too deep at this point. So even if I'm just yelling into the void with no chance of changing anything about the final track list, and that's not to suggest that complaining on the internet ever accomplishes much of anything, where was I going? Well, basically I'm going to yell into the void about the final track list now. This list is primarily composed of songs that I think are roughly equal parts iconic, strangely missing, and theoretically what I imagine would be fun to play. But first, a few quick honorable mentions.
Now, let's see how you dance!
At a soft 15 and 14 are The Corrupted from Cage 2 and The Deep End from Cage 1, which are not necessarily tracks that you'll catch yourself humming even after a day of playing either game, but they're essentially the forgotten siblings of the Cage 1 and 2 boss tracks that were often included as Darkened Worlds and Melody of Memory. The Corrupted may be better known as the track that plays during fights with the Hostile Program, the Storm Rider, the Experiment, the Ground Shaker, and the Grim Reaper the second time. Likewise, you may have internalized The Deep End as the oh shit song that plays when fighting some especially daunting opponents in Cage 1, like the Ice Titan, Kurt Zisa, the Phantom, Giant Ursula, Dragon Maleficent, and Ansem 1. And also Rock Titan. I feel like they're pretty easily added in as darkened worlds that branch off from any given Cage 1 or 2 world in their respective world tour sections, but I suppose these tracks will have to stay in the shadows of more recognizable boss themes like Squirming Evil and Vim and Vigor. And an honorable 13 is kind of an oddball personal choice of mine, but I would have liked to see at least one menu-y song in Melody of Memory. I mean, all of the field and battle themes deserve a spot before anything like that. Those are the moneymakers after all, and maybe it's a bit harder to contextualize and visually represent something that plays primarily on a menu or options screen, but I think Shipmeister's Humoresque from Cage 1 is a charming little track that would have been nice to see. Or even at the expense of it being playable, maybe just have it play on one of the game's own menus, or as an alternate song that can play on your results screen after finishing a track. I actually quite like Dice and Shine, aka the command board theme from BBS, which plays after every track, but it does get a little old eventually. Maybe the song that plays on the results screen could have been different depending on how well you did, or if you got a full chain or not. Shipmeister's Humoresque is kinda dopey sounding, so maybe it could have played if you got a mediocre score. Of course, I'd still never hear it because I'm a pro epic gamer and my mom says I'm the coolest cat she knows. Alright, and for our last pair of honorable mentions, I'm going to give props to what I consider the trio themes of Destiny's Union from Birth by Sleep and At Dusk I Will Think of You from Days. Sort of like the character name titled character themes, except for Shion who's bougie, I always thought of these two tracks as like group themes for Team BBS and Team Days respectively. Destiny's Union plays in a few cutscenes spread out between Birth by Sleep, 0.2, Cage 3, and they even use it a few times in Dream Drop, but I always associate it primarily with Terra, Aqua, and Ven, since it plays in their first cutscene together where Aqua passes out the Wayfinders. Likewise, At Dusk always played after Roxas had completed his mission and decompressed at the end of each day by sitting at the top of a nauseatingly high up clock tower, often joined by Axel and Shion. Thankfully, both of these tracks are actually at least present in the game and will play on the game's main menu depending on if Team BBS or Days was the team you played as most recently. But really, I think you could just throw together a highlight reel of scenes for both the Wayfinder and Ice Cream Trio, slap a memory dive chart over each of them, and you've got two perfectly good songs that could have been synthesized in World Tour and added to your free play track list. Okay, only insert amount of minutes herein, and we can finally get started on the list proper. Alright, let's face it, we have to accept that the mobile games are a part of the Kingdom Hearts franchise. I'm not saying anyone's gotta like them or even think that they should continue to be made, but we ought to acknowledge their existence. At this point, we've had a handful of emergent plot points come from Union Cross and all of its ilk, so I think it would be a disservice to the series at large to ignore these titles. And for what it's worth, Melody of Memory does not ignore the mobile realm entirely. There are collectible cards and artwork that represent characters, keyblades, and scenes from that subsection of the franchise. What does go unrepresented, however, is the music from this subsection, and I think it deserved at least one track to show up as its delegate for the Melody of Memory conference. There aren't a ton of original options, but I think a track from Union Cross's most iconic location in Daybreak Town would serve as a good candidate. So for number 10, I'm going with the newly named Before the Daylight, which plays as the dreamy backing track for Daybreak Town. The battle theme Wake Up World would also work fine here, I just have stronger memories of the lower key field theme. Maybe a track that represents games set centuries ago would be difficult to work into the World Tour since Kairi would have to narrate over stuff that she has no knowledge of, but I think that's easily remedied by making any Union Cross track synthesizable in World Tour and then letting you play them in Quick Play. So what the hell did Kingdom Hearts 3 do to deserve this? This was the main question I took away after I made my way through Melmem's campaign, and I still don't fully have a grasp on the answer. If it's true that Melody of Memory was developed alongside KH3, I would have just preferred to have waited a couple extra months so that the newest and most anticipated title in the series got the recognition and representation it deserved. At the very least, I would have expected each world to have gotten the same treatment that all the others did, one field and one battle track. I'm sure, throw in Let It Go, that's a layup, but why not the field and battle theme from Arendelle 2? Why the Monstropolis battle theme but not the field theme? Why the Kingdom of COVID field theme but not the battle theme? And why not Toy Box Goddamn Jam, a song that's so good even the title is self-aware enough to know that it is a bop, a slapper, and indeed an unapologetic jam. You can consider the number 9 spot a general airing of my KH3 neglect grievances, because really all of these forgotten field and battle themes got the short end of the Keyblade. Oh wait, that's a stick. And I discussed this in my Melody of Memory podcast, but it's just odd that we're able to pull from games like Days and Coded and external sources like the Renaissance movies, but not represent Kingdom Hearts 3 more fully. It's not easy being a KH3 truther. It's a cold, harsh road. It's neither the road to light nor the road to darkness. It's the middle road, not the Twilight Road to Nightfall. It's the road to unwinnable internet arguments. If you ask someone who's only tangentially familiar with the Kingdom Hearts series to name or hum a track from any one of the games, they'll probably conjure up Simple and Clean or any of the other Utada songs, but after that, it's gotta be Dearly Beloved, right? I've never played a Halo game, I've only ever played a few minutes of Skyrim or Banjo-Kazooie, blasphemous, I know, but I still recognize all of those games' main themes. They just permeate into gaming culture at large, even reaching people who didn't grow up with or typically engage with that genre of game. I have to imagine Dearly Beloved is up there as one of those heavy hitters, but maybe I'm just blinded by my own love of the franchise and the song. But it's a useless exercise because Dearly Beloved didn't have to compete with other iconic video game themes, it just had to compete with songs from the same franchise, and it somehow isn't playable, at all. I really had money on at least one rendition showing up on the track list, or at least being used as the tutorial song. For a timely comparison, I really think a Kingdom Hearts music game without a playable Dearly Beloved is almost as egregious as a Thanksgiving dinner without turkey. The Utada songs are mashed potatoes, which categorically slap, you gotta have those. Those iconic boss themes, that's your stuffing, your gravy, your cranberry sauce, Circle of Life, Whole New World, that's pumpkin pie. But where is the foundation of the meal? Dearly Beloved is just synonymous with the music of Kingdom Hearts for me. Of course, there's a ton of variations on the song, so maybe it was a real selfish choice of which one to pick, so they just went with none. KH1's is the most iconic, I think KH3's is the most emotional, but my actual pick for this number 8 spot is the rendition from this very game. I want to play this jazzy-ass Dearly Beloved. Wouldn't it be cool to have one track that comes from Melody of Memory itself? On top of that, I think it would potentially be the most fun and interesting version to play. Instead, I guess I'll just have to sit on the title screen and flick the control sticks around like a younger sibling who was tricked into thinking they were helping it play by mashing an unplugged controller. Melody of Memory got me to say something I had never said before when playing a Kingdom Hearts game. Aw man, where's 100 Acre Wood? I mean seriously, what a tragic irony, a world that, while charming, has always served as a bit of a low point of interest for me. In 4 Kingdom Hearts games, it finally has an opportunity to show up in a game where it would be not only tolerated, but welcomed, and we've got nothing. At first I thought, well, maybe they couldn't contextualize visiting it in the World Tour since it's a book and not like a planet, but then I remembered we're able to swing by places like Space Paranoids and vague, darkened incarnations of other worlds, so I don't see why we couldn't have had a big storybook floating out in space with 2 100 Acre Wood tracks to play. Of course, the most iconic track associated with the world is Winnie the Pooh, not only by Kingdom Hearts standards, but by Disney and pop culture standards at large. But I'm making a selfish pick here and going with the minigame theme, Bounce-A-Rama. Now this track originated in KH1, but my favorite version of it is from KH3, making this specific rendition a doubly slighted and ignored track in the Melody of Memory discard pile. It's just got this fun little Irishy, Scottishy flair to it, and I think of every single song in the KH discography, no other track makes me as happy as KH3 Bounce-A-Rama. This song has provided me with more dopamine in one listen than the entirety of 2020 did, which is maybe damning with faint praise, but still. I can't help but wiggle around in my seat like a kid trying to learn fractions over Zoom when this track is on. When it comes to the lack of KH3 and 100 Acre Wood and Melody of Memory, my feelings are the exact same as Rabbit's. More! More! What's the theme song of Kingdom Hearts 2? Right, it's Sanctuary. Okay, now what's the theme song of Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix? You'd think it would still be Sanctuary, but you're wrong. It's actually Cavern of Remembrance. I mean, think about it. We've got a handful of tracks that were added in the Final Mix version of KH2, and a few of them made their way into the game, most notably the Christmas Town tracks, but what we're missing is what first comes to mind when I think of songs, and to a greater extent content, added in 2FM. I mean, you've got your Lingering Will and your Mushroom 13, but I think the true main attraction of KH2's updated iteration is the Data Organization, hosted in the Garden of Assemblage, and by extension, the Cavern of Remembrance. Pop this track in as a darkened world or something, somewhere around KH2 Radiant Garden, and I think we'd all be better off because of it. The battle track for this area, Deep Anxiety, would have been nice as well, but I find the field theme more memorable due to its mysterious, sort of ethereal atmosphere. Plus, I've got enough deep anxiety in this game already when I'm close to getting all excellence on a song and I psych myself out at the end and get 3 goods on the last 3 presses. The mobile games are to the series as the Gummy Ship is to one game. Nobody's favorite Kingdom Hearts game is Union Cross or Dark Road. Likewise, nobody's favorite part of KH1, 2, or 3 is the Gummy Ship. The percentage of the population who represent that statement to the contrary is 0. I mean, please show yourself if you're out there. If you exist, I'll sit down with you for an interview, we can put it up as my 1,000 subscriber special. But anyway, while nobody is ever really clamoring to get through all of that annoying plot and swordplay filler to get to the good Gummy Ship segments, we can't and shouldn't deny their place in Kingdom Hearts history. And say what you will about how they broke up the traditional gameplay, I did always think it was a neat way to contextualize going from one level to the next, and it helped make the universe of the game feel a bit bigger and grander. And while they're, again, nobody's favorite segments, I came to enjoy aspects of each game's gummy portions, from KH1's garage, to KH2's big boss ships, to KH3's pseudo-open world approach to it. But regardless of which game you're playing, the music never takes a break, continuing to provide us with bops like Blast Away from KH1. This track is not just earwormy, but it's also iconic enough that it got a spot in the very exclusive and prestigious Ice Cream Beat roster in BBS. So we already know that it can be charted for a rhythm game. I think it'd be pretty easy to get the visuals for it too. You can literally just have a developer record themselves playing a KH1 gummy route, overlay your standard field track style over it, and you're done. I friggin' love the boss fights in Melody of Memory. I like the control scheme to both the bosses and the memory dive levels, and I think the boss fights feel especially fast-paced and hectic, and require you to think and act a lot quicker on Proud. But again, I want more. Only having 4 of these is a crime. There were tons of spots throughout World Tour where they could have worked in additional boss fights, at the very least Marluxia in the comms section and either Riku or Sayax in the Daze section. Beyond that, maybe something like Armored Ventus Nightmare, or even pick a boss fight for each of those boss themes like Shrouding Dark Cloud or Desire for All That Is Lost. That being said, I was still pleasantly surprised and excited when I ran into my first boss fight in World Tour, Ansem, at the end of the KH1 section. Although the song they used isn't the one I typically associate with him, even though it's what plays during the final boss fight. When I think of fighting Ansem in KH1, I think of Forza del Mal, aka Forces of Evil, because I don't want to continue butchering the Italian language, which is the track behind Riku Ansem in Hollow Bastion and Ansem 2 in the Depressini Islands crater. What we do get is Guardando nel buio, or Looking in the Dark, which is indeed what plays during the final World of Chaos encounter, but it's likely a track you've heard fewer times. Maybe they just wanted to be consistent, considering they use the final track for the other Nort bosses, although Melmem is not the most consistent game in the series, so I'm not sure if that's really a compelling argument. You could also argue that both tracks share elements with each other, so maybe it would have been redundant, but that's also kind of flimsy. Looking in the Dark shares themes with both Forces of Evil and Destati, the latter of which is also in the game on its own. Plus, we've also got 2 versions of Sora, 2 versions of Working Together, and 3 versions of Hand in Hand, or Hand to Hand, which is what it's apparently called in Dream Drop, which I did not know until this game. So basically, while I think Forces of Evil should have been used over Looking in the Dark, I think there was really no reason not to have both, especially considering they ended up going with the less iconic of the 2 tracks. When I was talking about the lack of KH3 worlds earlier, I, much like Melody of Memory, ignored the Caribbean because I was waiting to talk about it here. Where the hell was that world along with Port Royal and KH2? Judging by how the rest of the worlds were treated in this game, we could have gotten the field and battle themes from Port Royal in at least 1 track from the Caribbean, but instead we got nothing. Although the obvious pick for this spot is He's a Pirate from KH2, an iconic Disney and pop culture track in its own right. Of course, I'm talking about the fully fledged orchestral version of it from the remix, and not the sad and soggy rendition of it from original KH2. So what's the deal? Well, from what I can tell, it's gotta be a rights thing. Specifically with the Caribbean, it seems like they couldn't or didn't want to secure the rights to use the actors' likenesses in the game. It would make sense if KH2 and 3 had bigger budgets that allowed them to do that, and why the Pirates characters as well as Tron are absent from a side game like Melody of Memory. You might notice in the Memory Dive version of Don't Think Twice, clips from the party's time in the Caribbean are shown, but only ever of Sora, Donald, and Goofy, and never any Pirates characters. Now I did think, well, just because they can't use the characters, can't they just do what they did with Space Paranoids and not have a party member? In fact, most of the KH3 songs are memory dives anyway, which don't feature guest party members, but then I realized they'd still need visuals to play in the background, and it probably would have looked pretty awkward, if not impossible, to cobble together enough scenes without any Pirates characters in the Pirates world. And I'm guessing they also just weren't able to use He's a Pirate, since that was the battle theme for KH2's Port Royal, and even if they went the Tronless route with no Jack Sparrow party member, maybe they would have only had Knights of the Curse playable, drawing even more attention to the whole thing. Of course, none of this explains why another Jack is nowhere to be seen in either Halloween Town. Honestly, the whole thing sounds like a rights-securing copyright nightmare, and I hardly have the attention span for it. I thought Disney owned everything, but suddenly they don't own things enough to have their own things in their own games. I don't get it. Pass the rum. I was so excited when I realized the Utada songs would be in Melody of Memory. I honestly doubted if any of them would be included, and clearly I was right to, since not all of them made the cut. Like, I know there's the 3 main songs, and then Face My Fears is like, oh, the extra one from KH3, but its absence here is definitely conspicuous. Of course, I can't use the actual version of this track if I want the video to have, sound in it. But yeah, the original Utada Skrillex collab would have been right at home with the more prominent siblings, and even though it's my least favorite of the 4 Utada tracks, it's still a bop and is arguably the song best suited for a rhythm game out of the batch. I can't even think of a good reason as to why it was left out. Maybe they didn't want to have to make another montage of clips for the memory dive after making one for Don't Think Twice, but I don't know, just slap the KH3 opening cinematic over it, done. But think of how fun the dubsteppy part would have been to play. In reality, this probably should have been in the #1 spot just because it's friggin' Utada Hikaru, but I had a personal snub that I really wanted to see here, elevating it to the top of the pile. Alright, when I first saw the trailer for Melody of Memory, I literally thought, I cannot wait to play the Scarlet Ad Kylum battle theme. It was seriously the first track I thought of. It's not the most iconic, it's not my absolute favorite, and it didn't even have a name yet at the time, but it's just what came to mind. I was like, Bounce-A-Rama would be great, Dearly Beloved would be great, but I cannot wait to fucking jam to Edge of Existence. So yeah, this was the one I was most bummed to not see or hear. It's just going so hard, and I really figured it was a given that it would be in just because of how good it is, but for whatever combination of reasons that we've talked about today, it didn't make the cut. I just thought maybe we could have squeezed it in right after the Keyblade Graveyard and the KH3 section, but alas, we just jumped right to the final boss. And of course, the Scala Field theme named after itself, while not just absolutely losing its shit like Edge of Existence, is a really beautiful and haunting track that I wouldn't have minded seeing as well. But just like Billy Zane, KH3 got shown the door on this go-around, so if there's no DLC, there's always Melody of Memory 2 in 2040, right? Hey, thanks for watching. I know I've done ranking and top 10 stuff before, but I've never done a video where I pretty much complain the whole time, so hopefully it wasn't too exhausting to listen to. I mean, I'm definitely bitching, but the bitching is coming from a place of genuine love and care. Let me know if you had a track that you were itching to see but didn't make the cut, or maybe what song did I snub from my snub list? I know for Sam it's Dark Impetus from Birth by Sleep. It probably deserved at least an honorable mention. I just hate that boss fight so much that I think I've tried to push it out of my memory. I'm not even going to grab footage to play in the background while I talk about it right now. That's how little I want anything to do with it. But anyway, drop a like if you enjoyed. Click subscribe if you want to be on top of that KH1 boss ranking that I keep saying is coming out before I get distracted by something else. Until then, stay safe out there and take it easy. Actually, there was another song, you could consider it like another honorable mention, but it was like this rap track that came out. I know it came out like a week or so before the launch of the game, but I feel like they could have squeezed it in. What was it called? What was it? The Ruins of something? Hollow Bastion something. I don't know, it was really good though. Like, some people say it was straight up bad, but I thought it was really good.